Mrs. Threadgood was enjoying the Reese's peanut butter cup that Evelyn had brought and reflecting back to what seems to be her favorite period, the time when all the trains were running past her house. But something she had said the week before interested Evelyn, and her curiosity got the best of her. "Mrs. Threadgood, did you say that E.J. and Ruth had a little boy?" "Oh, yes, Stump, and you never saw a more manly little fellow, even when he lost his arm." "Good Lord, what happened?" "He fell off one of the trains and had his arm cut off, right above the elbow. His real name was Buddy Threadgood, but they called him Stump, 'cause all he had left was a little stump of an arm. Claire and I went to see him in the hospital, and he was just as brave. Didn't cry, didn't feel sorry for himself. But then E.J. raised him that way, to be tough and take hard knocks." She went over to see her friend who owned the tombstone place, and had him make up a baby tombstone that had carved on it, "Here lies Buddy Jerm's arm, 1929 to 1936. So long, old Pa." She put it out in the field behind the cafe, and when he got home, she took him out there and then made a big to-do about having this funeral for his arm. Everybody came, Aunt Zia and Big George's children, Artis and Jasper, Little Willie Boy, and Lofty Bird, and all of Labor kids. E.J. had some Eagle Scout come out there and play taps on the barger. E.J. was the first one to start calling him Stump, and Ruth Neal had a fit, said it was a mean thing to do, but E.J. said it was the best thing, so nobody would call him anything about it behind his back. She thought he might as well face up to the fact that he had an arm missing, and not be sensitive about it. And she turned out to be right, because you never saw anybody that could do more with one arm. Why? He could shoot marbles, hunt and fish, anything he wanted to do. Anything he wanted to. He was the best shot in Whistle Stop. When he was little, and there was somebody new in the cafe, E.J. would bring him in and have him tell this long, tall tale about going fishing for catfish down on the Warrior River, and he'd get them all caught up in the story, and then E.J. would say, "How big was the catfish, Stump?" And he'd put out his arm, like the grown fishermen used to do to show how long the fish was, and he'd say, "Oh, about that big," and E.J. and Stump would laugh over the expressions on the people's faces, trying to figure out how long that figure was. Of course, now, I'm not saying he was a saint. He had his little temper fits, just like the other little boys, but in his whole life, the only time I ever knew him to complain or be upset is that one Christmas afternoon, when we were all sitting around the cafe, drinking coffee and having fruitcake, when all of a sudden he started carrying on like a crazy person, just mashing up all of his toys. Ruth and E.J. went in the back room where he was, and in as little time as it takes you to say, "Buttered biscuits," E.J. had him in his coat and out the door. Ruth was upset and worried and ran after them and asked where they were going, but E.J. said, "Never mind, Dad then would be back in a little while." And sure enough, they were back in about an hour, and Stump was laughing and in a good mood. Years later, when he was down at my house cutting my yard, I had him come up on the porch and handed him a glass of iced tea. I said, "Stump, do you remember that Christmas when you got so mad and stomped your erector set that Cleo and I gave you?" Well, he just laughed and said, "Oh, Aunt Nini, that's what you call me." He said, "Aunt Nini, I sure do." I said, "Where did E.J. take you that afternoon?" He said, Oh, I can't tell you, Aunt Lily. I promised I wouldn't. So I still don't know where he went, but E.J. must have said something to him, because he never worried about his arm being missing again. He was a 1946 champion wild turkey hunter, and do you know how hard it is to shoot a wild turkey? Evelyn said, no, she didn't. Well, honey, let me tell you, you have to shoot those turkeys right between the eyes. And their heads are no bigger than my fist. Now, that's a good shot. He even went on to play all kinds of sports. Never let arms stop him in any way, and sweet. You never met a sweeter boy. Of course, Ruth was a good mother, and he adored her. We all did. But Sam and E.J. were special. They take off hunting or fishing and leave us all behind. They enjoyed each other's company more than anyone else, I guess. One time, I remember Sam put a piece of pecan pie in his pocket and ruined his good pants. And Ruth was just fussing at him, but E.J. thought it was the funniest thing in the world. Now, E.J. could be rough with him. She was the one that threw him in the river when he was 5 and taught him how to swim. But I tell you one thing, he never sassed his mother like some boys will do. At least, not when E.J. was around. She just wouldn't allow it. Not at all, no sir. He imagined his mama not like other spoiled artists. They couldn't do a thing with him, couldn't they? Evelyn said, I guess not, and noticed Mrs. Threadgood had her dress on inside out.